Salvete omnes, hodie SDAs. Lost my thing. Oh, here it is. Hodie SDAs. Martis. Today is Tuesday. Our quote of the day. This month, or this week, excuse me, I picked more biblical things, and the context is because of the context of our stories are a bit more biblical related. So our quote of the day today is, In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. If you're Catholic, you might recognize that from Mass. That is in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I realize that's a bit more New Testament. We are going to be taking a look at something a bit more Old Testament, and this is the relationship really between the Jewish people and the Romans. And so looking specifically at the site of Masada. So you guys will be reading the passage in our textbook today and answering the culture questions. I have some notes, so I'm just going to read these to you guys real quick and give you guys some context for the culture readings that you'll be doing. Please keep in mind, while you are encouraged to do the culture readings today, you can look at your own pace. You may have already finished the culture readings, and you may be a bit behind and might be doing it tomorrow, and that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read my notes that we have here. The stories that we're going to be reading that take place in Judea are come from the historian Josephus, and he was alive during the Roman times. You guys may have heard of Josephus. He claimed, so in the stories, there's going to be some women who interacted with him. So once we start reading the stories of Masada, they're very solemn, they're very serious, but they're very important for us to examine. We will be talking more about Josephus later. So in 1963 to 1965, the site of Masada was excavated by a team of archaeologists led by Yagan Yadin. I'm going to butcher names, I'm sorry. But the remains of the 5 Roman camps encircling Masada and a huge ramp to the top of the fortified hill verify those details that are told by Josephus. He is the historian. You know what? Let's pull up a picture of these hills. I have some videos too. I know the Cambridge videos aren't available in the same way that we've had in the Red Book and Blue Book. But I have some YouTube videos that I'll share with you guys about the siege of Masada. So we see it's a very well fortified palace on a hill, very steep, right? It's a fascinating rock. I'd love to visit there one day. But this is the palace of Herod. So there are 5 Roman camps that encircle Masada, and there's a huge ramp, and we can see the ramp right here. And this fortified hill, and just gives great detail of the siege in his account. One other find was a group of 11 small pottery fragments, each bearing a single name. So here are the pottery fragments here. So you'll read more about it when you read this page today. One has the name Ben Yair written on it, and this might refer to Eleazar. However, there's no firm evidence to connect these fragments to the lots that, according to Josephus, were drawn by the Jewish defenders. More recent excavations and the scarcity of human race some doubts about other aspects of Josephus's historical account. So this is a site that has a lot of differing opinions by historians, biblical archaeologists, things like that. Either way, the Romans did destroy the temple in Jerusalem, and Titus returned to Rome with prisoners and the temple's treasures to celebrate this triumph with his father. According to Josephus, Vespasian built a temple of peace to house the Jewish treasures, except for the law and the drapes which he had put in his own palace. Remember, Titus succeeded Vespasian's as emperor in AD 79, but then died less than 3 years later. To commemorate his brother's victory over the Jews, Domitian then built the triumphal arch in the Forum sometime after his death. The story about the procession is fictitious, but it is possible that the temple treasures, which are shown in the arch, let's go ahead and pull up a picture of that. Ooh, I am too zoomed in. So weird that my internet just bopped out for a minute. Okay, so here we can see kind of like the procession of the spoils of war. Oh, good old Khan Academy. What do we do without you? The relief is gorgeous and beautifully done despite the sad context. Oh, this is actually a video. Well, maybe you guys want to go on Khan Academy and watch this video if you really weren't interested. I just wanted a picture. So here's a relief panel showing among other things, a menorah and other items from the temple being paraded through the streets of Rome. So Vespasian gained the throne with a lot of financial deficits. So there's a lot of, but one of the reasons that he sieged Jerusalem and got these precious items was to take care of the financial deficit. And the Flavians may have paid for their large building programs using the plunder from the Temple of Jerusalem. However, Josephus, the historian, never really hints at this. He never makes a suggestion that, that's what happened to the treasure. But a lot of it did remain in Rome. One of the building projects that was made with the spoils of war here was actually the Colosseum, also known as the Flavian Amphitheater. Remember, Vespasian, Domitian, and Titus are the Flavian dynasty. So if you ever get a chance to visit the Colosseum, maybe take a second to, or if you already have, I know a few of you have, think about, the death and destruction, I suppose, that comes with it, right? Anyways, a lot of the treasure did stay in Rome for a long time until it was sacked by the Vandals in the 5th century AD. And the treasures were also taken then to North Africa, Constantinople, and then finally they did return to, this is like my favorite part of the story. Eventually, over centuries and centuries, they did return back to Jerusalem in the 7th century AD, where they are now in a, I believe they're in a museum, but some of them never got recovered. There's a good amount of mystery to the story of where are they now. I like to think that they're highly protected from, especially with so much good destruction happening in the Near East. I've talked to you guys before about the site of Pergamum and others being destroyed by ISIS. So thinking about those places in Syria and the destruction of the archaeological sites there, I'm hoping that these are highly guarded treasures as well. Anyways, we're going to be talking more about Josephus. We are going to be talking a lot about the destruction at Masada this week. It is a very serious and touchy subject, and I think it's really interesting. We've talked about the Romans taking advantage of British and Celtic cultures, like what we see with Boudica, and here we see another one. And I'm probably going to butcher some names, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce them correctly. The Near Eastern names are a bit more difficult sometimes because they have a different alphabet and different pronunciation system. If you know how to pronounce it better than I do, please recommend it in the group sessions. I appreciate, knowing better. So yeah, tons of interesting history that we're going to be talking about. and very touchy stuff too. So it's going to possibly be uncomfortable, these stories that we read this week. So I'm just going to kind of put that out there that I don't know, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable. I'm going to end the video, kind of end it here. I'm going to give you guys a second. If you want to read the culture section on your own, you can go for it now. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. And then that way you kind of have a voice as well. These things are going to be reflected in our stories, Masada 1, Masada 2 that we're going to be reading next week. And then finally, the week after that, we're going to be reading the Arch of Titus story, which really ties it all up together. I know it's kind of weird. We just got to Rome, and now all of a sudden we're going to be going to Jerusalem. But I think it's a really great story, and it's a very important story for the history of Rome. Right? It's not just about what happens in the city itself, but I think honestly more Roman history happens, you know, more identity, what it means to be Roman, happens outside the boot of Italy. So Rome and Judea. In about 65 BC, Jerusalem was taken by Pompey the Great, and Judea became a client state of Rome. This was simply the latest invasion in a land with turbulent history of foreign domination. Both Caesar and Augustus had recognized Judaism as a legitimate religion, allowing the construction of synagogues, the celebration of the Sabbath, and the collection of a temple tax. However, by the time of our stories, imposition of higher taxes placed a heavy burden on the population. The latest governors were non-Jews who made every effort to exploit their office financially rather than maintain the order and security. Lack of unified Jewish leadership resulted in violent clashes among various Jewish factions. Serious rioting in Jerusalem led to a general revolt against Roman rule in AD 66, while Nero was emperor. Vespasian, who was then a commander in the Roman army, was given the job of crushing the rebellion. Civil war in Rome resulted in Vespasian taking over the throne there. Once he secured Italy, the Roman army, under the command of his son Titus, besieged Jerusalem. Jerusalem was conquered, and the temple was destroyed in the spring of AD 70. Titus returned to Rome with prisoners and the temple treasury to celebrate a triumph with his father. Unwilling to concede defeat, a band of zealots under Eleazar ben Yahir occupied Masada, a nearly impregnable fortress built for King Herod on a 1,300-foot butte near the Dead Sea. There, they held out against Flavius Silvius' 10th Legion for Fretensis until AD 73. It's insane that they held out that long. The Jews' last stand at Masada, as described in our stories on pages 150 to 151, is based on the account of 1st century AD historian Josephus. The victory over Judea was considered a major military success for the Flavian dynasty, that is Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. So yeah, we're going to be reading about the siege, about Flavius Silvia and the 10th Legion, about the Jewish stronghold there. So, in the occupation of Masada. I'm going to go ahead and link a video to give you guys some more detail if you're interested. Totally optional to view, but I hope you find this story interesting and you're interested in the history of this horrifying event, but horrifying but important to know, right? History is not always about the easy stuff. In order to really learn history, we have to learn about the difficult things too. And it's important for us moving forward to be able to reflect on the hard times in history, and in order to improve humankind from those difficult things and make the world a better place. Okay, well, I'll see you guys in the office hours. We'll answer the culture questions there, and then all you have to do is just simply take notes, turn it in using the online portal. The assignment is there on our Google Classroom, very similar to the way that you guys did the passive practice sentences the other day. So, all right, that'll be all. I'll see you this afternoon. Wale.